Thanks for joining the Offsite Wood Design and Digital Practice Roundtable Series number 1. Theme today is going to be BIM is about collaboration. And over the past year, I've helped lead the build of a pretty impressive piece of software that plugs into Revit. But before we get to the soft launch of that and how to look at features, a great group of guys from Boston who have been beta testers and involved in the rollout of our software while we've supported them.
Hi, Eli. Thanks for that. I'm the business development manager for Nordic Structures. Been working with the company for 20 years and involved myself in the early phases when Nordic had made the decision to build a CLT plant, but before there was any real demand in the market. And Nordic's path to building CLT and mass timber projects, I think, is really informed a lot by the journey that we had to take. Because of the lack of demand, we became our own development company.
But I think I recall when I told you I had this really cool young team out of Boston who was going for a 7-story wood structure with no podium in 70 feet. You might have raised an eyebrow at me on that one, and we might have not been sure these guys were going to be able to do that. Can you give us some hints how hard that is?
Well, yeah, I think maybe my jaw dropped and the eyebrows raised, and a little bit of incredulity. So we hadn't had a lot of success actually developing multifamily res in the U.S. There had been some projects that we had executed successfully, and actually the very first multifamilies that were done were for the U.S. Army. Fortunately for us, we had experience in Quebec, Montreal specifically, which is a very aggressive market. Concrete is incredibly cheap, and we were building 8-9 story buildings using mass timber, and to be able to be competitive in that concrete jungle.
Thank you, Eli. My name is Patrick Hayden. My company is Haycon. I work very closely with the real estate development group called Boston Real Estate Collaborative. We're partners in this project. We oftentimes work with Monty and Alex and Renz from MFDS and H&O. At first glance, the cost on a per square foot basis is very competitive to the 5/2 that we've built in the past 2 projects. We work very collaboratively and closely on these types of projects, and it's very fluid, which I think is the way to do it. There's not a bunch of work done in one vacuum or another where you have to go in reverse and redo stuff.
On the ground floor, we have a small mechanical room for services and water sewer connections and whatnot. We have a small amenity space over on the left, and then over on the right, we have a parking garage.
To speak a little bit more to mass timber on the structure side, at 7 stories, an often complicated coordination piece, especially with building heights and column layouts, is when you do a 5-on-2 podium, that level 2 often wants to be a residential floor. And what happens is you're trying to marry the second floor to the top residential floors, but it also has to have some program alignment with the first floor.
And taking that whole vertical pathway for the services through the opening in the beams, to me, is just indicative of the can-do approach.
It simplifies that detail and also gives flexibility. You can have full height windows up to the bottom of the CLT plank. Gives a real thin profile on the exterior of the building. The key detail on that joint is we also, with a mass timber building, the char performance is how it achieves its fire rating. So we have to analyze all these sections under charred conditions, and the beams actually protect the center of the column and become the char layer on the center of the column at the connection, which I think.
The important thing with mass timber to consider is that unlike steel, concrete, and also light gauge on podium, the typical types of projects that they were involved in the past, a lot of times the integration of the follow-on subtrades happens at a much later date. We're manufacturing everything with CNC equipment at the plant. The more we integrate with the mechanical systems, we're going to be working with the installation crew to make sure that we're sequencing that in a fashion that makes the most sense In some cases on larger jobs, we may look at going vertical by sector as opposed to doing an entire floor. So these are also parts of the path that we engage in.
Well, I can tell this is a job we're going to have to check back in on continuously as we go forward.
Thanks, Eli.
Thank you,
Very good.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Eli.
Well, thanks everybody for listening through right to the end of a dense presentation. But in the next roundtable on the topic of BIM practice, I thought there's really a need for the definitions. The BIM for Dummies idea is not really dummies. There's a lot of great business owners and other non-Revit users who really want to understand what's going on, what the different trends are, what all the different softwares they hear about. So we're really lucky on this software project to have had a trusted advisor right on through. Nicholas Catelier from Revit Pure is a well-known Revit training expert. He's helped me with the dashboard for architects, the understanding of the different ways in which architects are using the Revit content, and he and I are going to take an attempt at the BIM overview. We'll both be kind of at the edge of our expertise, but doing it in an informal chat fashion, looking at different tools. And then in the following weeks, we'll be proceeding into a real close look at the Offsite Wood plugin for Revit. So thanks again for being involved, and your comments, shares, likes, and invite your friends. Take care.